Welcome, Daniel, Ben. You guys are in a band called A Place for Owls, I understand, yes?
That's correct. Yes, that's us.
Awesome. Would you mind telling us, start from the beginning, how'd you guys get together? How'd you start?
Well, it's kind of hard to get quite to the beginning because Daniel and I have been friends for like 15 years or something ridiculous at this point now. So we met freshman year of college and just became fast friends over like playing acoustic covers of like Jimmy Eat World and May songs and like uh we have always had that musical connection with each other, and mostly we've lived in the same city too. So in a lot of ways, A Place for Owls feels like the continuation of almost a lifelong friendship at this point. But the band in earnest like got together. Probably we started doing stuff genuinely in about 2020 is when we put out our first release. We had been jamming for years with like our drummer Jesse and our bass player Ryan before that, but we were not taking it seriously until like early 2020. And then of course 2020 happened. So
Yeah.
so that was interesting. We weren't able to play a lot of shows out, so we ended up doing a little bit of a hybrid of like house shows for the first couple years of being a band. And then we really tried to cultivate some form of online community. Our main social media is Twitter, and we just love chatting back and forth with people who like the same sort of emotional rock music that we do. And so we've tried to, I don't know, Daniel, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I just think of like the through lines are friendship and music that we both like. Like basically everyone in the band at some point we were friends and then it was like, "Oh, you like that band? I like that band. We should play music together." And then eventually like we just became a five-piece band of people that kind of all met and started hanging out that way.
Is there like a Venn diagram that you have of all the bands that you guys enjoy together? It's like, hey, well, we like these two and they intersect here. And is there
Yeah.
would there be one centralized band on that Venn diagram?
I think Jimmy Eat World would be the one band that all of us are like obsessed with. Ryan, our bass player, is a convert to emo music. He's not necessarily like he
He wasn't
plays a lot.
born in it.
No, yeah, he plays a lot of like alt country and
Okay.
like bluesy, rocky stuff. And he's one of the best players in the world, but we've had to convert him. So, but like a month and a half ago, he rolled up to band practice and he was just absolutely blasting Sunny Day Real Estate. And so I felt
Okay.
like we had done it,
Got it.
you know?
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So if everyone wouldn't mind just kind of talking about like what your role is in the band, just so that our listeners can kind of put a face to a name and or an instrument, I guess.
I play guitar and I sing the songs, and most of the songs start with me. We've gotten into a good sort of rhythm of collaborative writing over the last few um like months, but I'm the lead singer and I'm the benevolent overlord of the place for else.
Gotta have one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I play lead guitar and sing background vocals.
I'm Nick, and I play guitar, keys, and other random stuff, sort of utility. And yeah, I started on as a producer, sort of, and we had a good time. So they said I should join the band, and I did.
That's great.
I
How many members is in the band total? Is there five?
Yeah, we've got 5. So not on the call is Jesse, who's our drummer, and Ryan, who's our bass player. And Nick, we started out as a 4-piece, and then Nick recorded our first acoustic EP as like the engineer and producer. And we just had such a really good collaborative time with him that we invited him to join the band. We got into a rhythm of like sending songwriting demos, like half-finished voice memos to each other, even when we weren't in the same band. And Nick wrote this banger of a song called 25, and I was like, I would like to play that song in my band, and I think that would go better if Nick, would you like to join our band so that I can steal your songs?
That's fair.
That's
Yeah.
that's diplomacy right there.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think I think the way that we kind of all got connected was through Dave of May, and I think that I don't know if you guys were playing a show with May or something, but I managed to I stumbled across your Instagram and I was kind of in awe. I don't know who I was talking to, but I was looking at Pedalboard, and I was kind of I was fanboying over the pedal. So I'm not sure who I was talking to, but I feel like I think that's kind of how we all got connected with each other.
That was probably maybe Daniel runs our Instagram, so that might have been Daniel that was talking about pedal boards.
Yeah, but it was actually Jesse's pedal board that you saw, and it's kind
Yeah.
of fun. So he's the drummer, but he's also an incredible guitar player and has an
Yeah.
incredible pedal board. And Ryan, as the bassist, is probably the best guitar player in the band. So we got a lot of talent.
Yeah,
Well,
the
mix
three,
and match.
yeah, the three of us on the call right now are all the guitar players, but we're okay, and our rhythm section is phenomenal at guitar.
I thought there was going to be when you said that just the bass player and the drummer weren't here, that there was going to be like a jab at those guys.
No,
Just not invited to anything.
Just heaping praises on them.
Yeah.
They would hate it if they were here though. So
yeah.
Sure, better that they're not there to be embarrassed by it.
Yeah, so that was Jesse's pedalboard, and he has influenced, I think, so the three of us that are on the call, Daniel, Nick, and me, have now become like pedal heads because of Jesse's influence, and we can talk guitar pedals now, but all three of us historically have been like, well, I'm just gonna plug direct in and then just dime it, you know.
When we were talking with Dave, I was after the call ended, I was just like, "Can I see your pedals?" And then he kind of walked us through his studio. But I don't know why pedals are just so fascinating. I don't know if it's because it's something that you get to kind of number one, I feel like they're aesthetically pleasing, but also it's like you've kind of crafted this this thing, and like I've kind of migrated away. I don't know if you ever mess with like multi-effects pedals, but they just don't slap as hard as like a thoughtful. Granted, a pedal board with individual pedals is more expensive, but it doesn't have that same feel. But I feel like people just love pedals, except Eric. He doesn't.
You know what they are for me? They're the things on my bike that make me go
Yeah,
faster.
right.
That's it.
I grew up playing this Digico like multi-effects pedal that I loved, but that's I think mostly because it's all I knew, and yeah, it was sick. I like didn't know how to adjust any of the presets, but it was just like a bunch of different metal tones and like and then it but I like left it in storage for a little while and the batteries like exploded inside of it. So that was unfortunately the end. My tone has only gotten worse over the years.
I feel like the multi-effects pedals too, you spend more time like tinkering than you do playing, because it's like, oh well, this sounds great, but how can I make it sound better? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like if I plug into a reverb and like that's it, then but if I can add 18 things all chained together through this like cab or whatever, I'll spend hours just tinkering with it. And there are some great sounds you can get out. I've been messing with the head rushes, and they sound cool, but there's just, I don't know, man, there's just something to be said about and I'm a big Walrus guy. Like Walrus Audio just are like my favorite, I think, pedals on the market. But they're expensive. So
Yes,
absolutely. Like everything, you get what you pay for.
Yeah. Well, I would add too that if you're a creative person already, which if you play an instrument, you are, there's something about the hope of what a pedal can do or unlock or whatever, that you're like, oh, but if I have that, then I can do this thing. And there, you kind of need that, like that next thing to look forward to. Like, I think that's actually powerful. It does something.
Agreed. Yeah, they and I've been dabbling for a while. I was like, I don't know why, I was just like super anti-used gear. Because like I gotta unbox it and I want it brand new and fresh. But I'm like, but I can get it used for like half the price, and half the stuff is still like brand new essentially. So I've tried kind of migrating. I don't know if you guys dabble in used stuff, or like what your
Yes.
rigs look like.
We have,
But
yeah, for sure. I often get stuff used. We have this running gag where Ben and I kill amps at shows. Ben has this old
I'm up to 4. Yeah.
4 killed amps.
4
Wow.
tube amps that I've destroyed.
And they work during sound check. And then it's only when we take the stage and plug in, it's like, sick. That makes no sound now.
great.
But Ben just played his first show in ages without breaking an amp, so that was
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Curse is lifted.
Yeah, that's right.
I've noticed, or I've heard, that a lot of bands have started migrating away from like the actual like tube amps, and they've kind of gone to the digital platform, whether it's like a Headrush or the Helix or the Fractal. Um, do you guys have any experience? Or are you like, there's something for me, like amps are great. Like I just like the way they sound, but I feel like there is probably a benefit, in using that digital. Have you ever like messed around with any like no amp shows?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, basically because we have 3 guitars and that just gets the stage to be like super noisy, we have switched to doing almost an all digital setup where I'm the only guitar player that's actually playing through an amp, and then Nick and Daniel have a Dream or a Ruby, which is kind of like a digital amp pedal. And then the amp that I didn't kill is an all digital Tube Master Fender amp that
Okay.
is like it's basically an amp pedal in an amp.
Okay.
And you can
Tone Master.
Tone Master, that's it. Yeah, yeah. It's not a Tube Master, it's a Tone Master.
Tone Master.
Yeah, yeah.
But I feel like too, like going to a show, like if you're just sitting back and listening, you probably can't tell the difference. You know what I mean? Like if I'm just coming to, and I'm not a musician and I'm just coming to listen, like I've noticed it a lot now with shows, like, and I feel like a lot of the bands, they kind of keep their gear, like especially the headliner, like backstage or whatever, but half of them just don't have anything on the stage. Like there's just nothing there. And I think Matt Healy from the 1975 said he's kind of migrated away from using any sort of any like amp on the stage or at all. But I guess the one thing that I hear is like those overdrive tones, it's like hard to kind of get that same tone out of, and I feel like it's gotten better. But the same tone that you can get out of out of an Orange or a Marshall or Mesa or whatever.
I mean, it depends on what you mean, because if you mean loudness, like the feeling of the thing hitting your chest, like I want then a giant orange stack on stage if it's like a hardcore band, that it like, because you want the visceral air vibration that's like hitting your chest from multiple directions. It's not only the PA, but it's like coming from the stage too.
Yeah.
And I feel like in certain genres, like heavy music especially, you'll never see no amps on stage, right? But I think more with like indie rock, like you're not looking for the street cred of it, and you're just like whatever feels cool or sounds good.
Yeah, I feel like it was always like when I first started playing guitar, it was like, well, you need the half stack because it looks cool. But then like as we get older and like, it gets more difficult to carry, especially if you're playing at like a bar and you're going up flights of stairs with that. Well, do you want to be the one to help me carry that up those stairs? Because I can't do it by myself.
It's realistic.
Yeah, right. Or like I don't know. So I feel like the at least for me, like the combo amps have been more of my go-to recently.
Yeah.
But to kind of to get away from the gear. So the band name, A Place for Owls. So where where did the name come from, and like what does it represent for the band?
Owls are sick. They're both they're both cute and terrifying. If you're a mouse, you would hate to see an owl coming, right? And so I just really love and there's also this Portlandia skit, like put a bird on it. It's just like I love birds very much. And so the owl is someone that I've always, and owls in mythology are always supposed to represent like strength and wisdom and like that sort of stuff. There's a couple of us are like geeks about like mythology and Old Testament history and a bunch of other stuff like that. Our bassist Ryan actually went to seminary and studied the Old Testament for in depth. And there's this one verse from Isaiah that God essentially is bringing judgment down on this land that like treats people awful, right? They're just not good and kind and hospitable people. And this verse in Isaiah is, they don't know what animal it is. It says, and I will desolate your land and I will make it, one translation says, I will make it a place for owls. And so it's like, that's a kind of a metal sort of like, oh, basically
Definitely.
humans were bad. And now those bad humans no longer live here and nature has reclaimed this land. And so it kind of feels like, when you see those pictures of like a Japanese amusement park that's been overrun by nature, there's just something like really, really captivating about that to me of like, once we're done effing everything up, there's going to be something that sort of like reclaims and redeems all the bad things that we've done. And so what's funny about that, A Place for Owls, though, is that in another translation into English, it says, I will make it a possession of the hedgehog. So they don't even know what animal necessarily this thing is. But anyways, we just thought it sounded cool.
Oh, well, for what it's worth, I think that A Place for Owls is better than A Place for Hedgehogs.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, it's made the right choice there.
That's right.
No shade to Sonic.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The first song we ever wrote, though, we call it Hedgehog just because it's like that little inside joke for us.
That's funny.
So how would you describe your music to someone who's never heard you before, never listened? I feel like that's always kind of like a tough, but what do you like, how would you describe it?
I'm the overtalker, so I'm gonna let these other guys.
Basically, I'm going to assume Ben is going to answer, and then if he does,
Elaborate. Anybody else? Right.
I think of it. I usually start with indie rock as describing it, and that's like the most broad, useless description I can give. But it's the melodic influences are there, like the Jimmy Eat World, the Death Cab for Cutie, that stuff that we loved, and then emo rock, like especially that kind of second wave stuff. American Football and bands like that were hugely influential as well. And then we also love just like good arena stadium rock. Like we love Creed, we love Switchfoot. Like there's just something good about like catchy, good hooks that are like, you just like to hear it.
I admire you for putting out the Creed love there.
I have no shame about that.
Creed is the young people love the Creed. Yeah. The Creed is having a little bit of a renaissance among the young people. I meet 20-year-olds all the time who are like, I love butt rock.
I'm seeing Creed with my dad this month, literally.
Yeah.
That's great. But yeah, I describe us as a butt rock band, pretty much.
No!
Just kidding. No, yeah, emo indie rock is usually what I say. Depending on like what people, if I get the feel that somebody knows like what emo, like I'll say what, like we're kind of an emo band, and they'll like kind of get it, and not think of like, I don't know, like instantly of just like the scene mall thing. If I think people are gonna think that, I'm just like indie rock.
Not like Hot Topic or the emo kids from South Park. Not like that.
Yeah, exactly. As much as we'd
right.
like to be. Yeah.
I like The Cure too, but that's not the vibe.
I'm glad to hear, Daniel, you said like Death Cab. I I listened to your guys' self-titled this morning, and that's what came to mind was Death Cab. So
Cool. Thank
I'm
you.
glad.
High praise.
I feel like I've been
Validated.
justified. Yeah, validated. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
But you do have a new album coming out this year, correct?
Yes. November
Um,
1st is when it comes out.
Okay.
It's not, I don't know when this will come out. So I think we're announcing this Friday. So depending on timeline, this might be breaking news or old news. I have no idea.
So wait, when are you? So has it not been announced yet?
So
Not
we're
announced.
Oh,
releasing, we're releasing the first single on this Friday.
Okay.
Broken Open Seed is the first one that comes out on Friday.
This will not air by then.
This will
Okay.
not air by then. So this is old news. So everyone will already know, but we know before it ever.
This is us from the future.
So Eric and I actually, I've anytime I have anyone on, I just listen to them. So I've been listening to that album nonstop. I don't know, Ben, I think, did you send it to me?
Yes.
Whoever emailed it to me, I've been listening to it since you've sent it, literally every day on my way to work.
That's cool. Yeah.
Awesome.
And it's fantastic. And I wouldn't just
You wouldn't just say that because they're here.
yeah, no, like I probably would be like, oh, sorry, we can't do a podcast.
We gotta reschedule.
We got a thing.
Something came up.
But it is really good. I actually I hope it's not super secretive, but I played it for my wife. She really dug it.
Spouses are allowed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I don't want to like
the
break
unwritten
any
rule.
like
Yeah.
So can you kind of talk about that album and just like the writing process for that and how that looked?
Yeah. So it's really hard for me to talk about the record because the bottom line is like these are the songs that I wrote after the worst year of my wife and I's life. Together, we survived. We're still good. We're still in love and persevering and like all that sort of stuff. But it's hard to talk about because there's like two instincts. One is like I'm a musician and I better market myself into something that feels like marketable to other people. So there's that instinct. But then there's also the like, it just feels weird to talk about pain in a in like a way that's like, hey, you'll have a lot of fun listening to my pain, But that's part of what emo music is, I guess. It's like we're all kind of rocking out while someone's talking about the worst day of their life, And so the record is basically just a series of really difficult things happened over the course of like 4 or 5 months. My wife and I went through a miscarriage after we were trying to have kids for a couple years. We went through like sort of job transitions and job loss. We went through like basically we were kind of like Book of Job run through the ringer of like this stuff is bad, right? And so these are the songs that of basically documenting me trying to come up with some form of meaning or like what is this all for? And there's a sort of a little bit of an arc of how does a person healthily deal with pain and confusion while they're in community? So there's these sort of themes of like that feeling of I'm alone in this, but also I've got beloved people around me that are like trying to care for me and trying to still be friends with me, even all this like messed up stuff just kind of seems to keep happening. So the first half of the record is like pretty brutal. It's like, it's still fun. There's like, we tried to make the music as fun as possible to sort of lighten if it was all acoustic, it would be unlistenable, right? Because it would just be naked pain. There it is for you. But because there's riffs and like synth hooks and a lot of gang vocals and like choruses and like that sort of stuff, you're able to actually encounter what's going on. So the first half of the record is basically like this brutal stuff is happening, and then the second half of the record is like, how do I deal with this in the context of my marriage and in the context of the community of friends that I'm in? So what would you guys add to that, Nick and Daniel?
Yeah, I mean that's about right. Ben, probably wrote about 75% of the songs, and a lot of it was starting with voice memos, just kind of sending them around, and we as the band, I feel like kind of got a front row seat with like, hey, this friend, this person that we love is going through this, and then we're getting songs in real time of like, hey, here's how I'm processing this part of it today, and you almost get the sense of like, oh, okay, I know what Ben is going through now because that's how he processes hard things. He writes a song about it. Um, so it all felt really weighty in that sense. Um, but then really, really cool to like actually make something beautiful out of that and to do it together and to collaborate and to bring these songs to life in a way that felt like, oh, we're actually making something really hopeful and beautiful out of something that was really dark.
It almost sounds like almost like a diary in song form.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them are like, there's a track that's at the tail end of depending on how the sequence, you look at the sequence, it's either the end of side A or the beginning of side B of the record. It's this mostly acoustic track called Desmond Hume. And it's like right after my stepdad, who was a son of a bitch and not a good person, passed away. And can I cuss? Is this
Yo.
okay?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Feel
This
free.
is NSFW.
Yeah.
This is pretty mild compared to
Yeah,
that.
Okay,
right.
good.
Uh-huh.
We can
Yeah.
say son of a bitch here.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
yeah. You can say whatever.
Okay, good. He was not a nice guy is the strongest words I can muster for
Sure.
for my stepdad. But I wrote this song, and literally what's on the record is the voice memo that I recorded to my phone. Like it was like in that sweet spot of I'm writing this right now, and this is the first good take of it that I've gotten like once I wrote it. Now, our producer, Dave Wilton, who recorded and engineered and added a bunch of instrumentation to the record. Dave added a bunch of these like crazy synthy, stringsy sort of like things to it, which I think is actually to the benefit. Cause like I said earlier, if it was just all acoustic, it would almost be too much emotionally. So he adds these like strings that sort of lift up and give you something to like hold on to of like, this song is beautiful. But then when you're like listening to the lyrics, you're like, this guy's not okay. He's having a really bad day or whatever. And the whole record kind of feels like that, where it is these little snapshots of like, here's how I'm doing right now. And the songs are almost roughly in chronological order of like how I wrote them. So like it's basically the story of that year in my life and our life together. But it's now at the point where we've been sitting on these songs for about 2 years and recorded them together. Now I can just listen with like a full and open heart, where it's like this part rocks, and like, oh, I'm really glad we added this part, and like it's nothing but joy right now for me, which is actually pretty damn therapeutic, because you end up reframing your own pain as, instead of this thing's going to overwhelm and destroy me, it's like, oh, actually, because I've put it in a song, it let me look at it and be like, this, nothing can destroy me because like of the love that sort of surrounds me. And the songs themselves, because the rest of the band sort of really poured their whole selves into it, like it's like almost for me this representation of like the love and care that I've received over the last couple of years, which is, I think, a special thing.
That there was like loss, like a couple other like lost family members and just like a rough time in general for other band members too. So it was like, I don't know, almost like the personal becomes universal thing, where like Ben's like processing is like something we could like hold on to it in a very real way, like even beyond just like Ben being our bro who we love. So yeah, it was a good like collective catharsis.
It's good to have a support group, so you're not in this, and no one is in this on their own.
I've heard too, like the recording into the voice memos has been really just helpful to a lot of musicians. I think Eric and I were talking to Puyan of Scary Kids Scaring Kids, and he mentioned that was how they like something was just kind of like, I'm feeling something, and if I like write it down, it might not be as powerful as if I just like record something. And I think maybe even Dave mentioned like doing the same thing, like,
What was the piece of media that I remember where it was probably a musician and they had an idea and he said, I need something to record, and all he had was a phone, so he called his self, I think, and left himself a voicemail. Was that the 90s version of what this is now?
Yeah, I think that was the 90s version. I can't remember. That's ringing a bell.
I'll never, you know what, I'll remember it in like a week from now.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep. That's like the poor man's copyright, which is where you put your CD in an envelope and send it to yourself through the mail. So it's like your proof in court. If you have to
Hey, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, the voice memo, I think, is very clutch for all of us. That's where most of the songs start, is where you've got like a half-assed idea, and you're just you're singing something, or you're playing a couple guitar chords. We mostly feel like you can then add to it and make it sound better when you record it in a professional studio. But something about that song, Desmond Hume, I was like, I'm never going to recreate this moment in time. And this is also a pretty brutal song to sing. So I don't know if I want to put myself through that to try to do 100 takes of this in the studio. So we were like, let's just actually put the voice memo on the record, which anytime an artist does something that's, even if it's not actually the voice memo, but it kind of has that crackly lo-fi feel, like I'm always drawn to that.
What was the recording process like? Was it like a super kind of emotional, like how long did it take to do everything? Have you had like these songs done for, I know you said you've been sitting on the song for a while, but in terms of like actually recording them, has everything been recorded for a while as well, or has it been like an ongoing thing?
So we recorded, for some context, that first record that we put out in 2022, we recorded that all ourselves. Nick and our drummer Jesse actually produced it and engineered, recorded the whole thing. And they're beautiful at it, and it sounds awesome, but it took so long because we're all like weekend warriors. Half of us are dads. Like we had only like, okay, we're meeting up at literally 10 o'clock at night on Thursday night, and we will record until 2 a.m. And that was the only time that we could like actually track stuff, right? And then Nick is mixing it, and he's mixing it all on the margins of his own very, very busy life, right? And so we knew that we kind of functionally needed to hand off recording and producing and mixing duties to somebody else. And we've become friends with this guy, Dave Wilton, who owns a studio in Lafayette. He's in a couple bands. One is called A Boy and His Kite. His claim to fame was he made enough money to buy his own home and studio from being on one of the Twilight movie soundtracks.
Okay.
Like he was
All right.
he was in between Bon Iver and St. Vincent, like on, I forget which Twilight movie it actually was. But he got, he got lucky enough to have a song of his placed, and he's just the sweetest dude. Like, he's leveraged that experience and that privilege to be the sort of artist that supports other artists. And so most of his career now is like recording other folks. And he records for like the Disney Corporation, and he records for like Gregory Alan Isaacoff, which is one of Colorado's like biggest folk singers. And so he's a big deal, but we're just friends with him. And so we paid him a friend rate, which was still multiple thousands of dollars that we like, we've like scrimped. It was basically 2 years worth of profits for our band. None of us draw money from the band, any t-shirt sales or like take home from the door of a show, whether it's a small show or a big show or whatever. we just put that money right back into the band funds. And so we then just paid Dave Wilton out of pocket. And now we're cash poor after after doing that. But Nick, do you want to talk about the actual experience of recording with Dave?
Yeah. We demoed like multi-track full mixed demos and stuff. And then Dave came and hung out with us one night and yeah, just like listened to us play the songs like in real time and then had notes for us. And yeah, it was really awesome in a lot of ways because he was in a really cool emo band with his twin like in high school that opened for like Hey Mercedes and stuff like legitimate but he loves the band like Elliot and
Sunny Day,
what
he's a big
Sunny Day,
real
yeah,
fan.
like Jeremy
Yeah.
Enoch like inspired him to sing, so like we really connected over all that stuff. And he also has done like mostly like kind of indie folk stuff in his career, and he was like, I'm ready to do like guitar rock record, and so he told us that he wanted to do our next thing. So it was like some good positive like friendly pressure to like make something that Dave would
So
be psyched about.
So we tracked all these demos, which essentially like we could release those like as an album. Like we tracked those demos ourselves. And then when we got to Dave's studio, we were so dialed that we recorded the whole thing in a week. So
Yeah,
it was
like 1 week.
because we wanted to be really efficient. And we were aware that we were paying Dave a handshake deal, a few $1,000s for however long it takes. But the more time that we spend with him in the studio, the less time he actually has paying gigs that are out there, right? And so we just wanted to be conscientious young men about that. And so, but the vibe in the studio was immaculate. We're like burning incense and reading Wendell Berry poetry in the morning to like get us into the right emotional headspace. And talking about like what's a positive version of masculinity, and like just like we're like crying and hugging each other basically, and and so that's the sort of, and Dave really, he treated himself like a sixth member of the band, and so he added a bunch, but he also really like he has an appropriate respect and sacredness for the sort of subject matter of the album. We did have to push him to like, Dave, we're a rock band. Let's turn the guitars up. He like the first mix pass that he sent us was like an indie folk version of like Us, right? Because that's he makes the best sort of popular music, right? That's he produces for people who are selling out Red Rocks. And so it was good. He wanted to do us a favor of like, let's get you into that sort of world. And we're like, actually, I kind of want to hear the guitars a little bit more, and I want to hear the vocals a little bit less. And so he was really receptive to that, especially when we were like, we kind of want to make people lean into the lyrics a little bit. We don't want the lyrics to be so upfront that it's like all that people think about. We want someone to go, oh, cool riff. And then if they are slowed down enough to notice the lyrics, there's like, oh, there's some depth going on here, right?
I enjoy that. What you just said, it's like a second treat. If you've liked the first enough, it's a layer. It's another layer that you can enjoy on top of that.
That's right.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like listening. So the album, "How We Dig in the Earth," right? Like that is the name of the upcoming album, and it sounds like when I listen to it, yeah, it's the final mix is just so good, and like there very rarely do I find myself listening to every track. There's always like one I get to where it's like, and then but I've listened to, and there's really nothing like that on there because I feel like they're all so unique, and that's what I really like. Like every song just feels, I don't know, like a legitimate story versus like, oh, this is just a song that's put out to fill space. Like it does seem like every song was actually like crafted with care.
Cool,
as you could say.
Thanks.
So-
Yeah,
That's
that's
really cool.
ridiculous. Yeah, that's
You-
that. I like we spend a lot of time thinking about the album as like an art form, right? And one of the things that, and especially because there's this push in music, the music industry now, to get bands or artists to just put out a bunch of singles because that's what's best for the Spotify algorithm, or like that's it. There's this whole science behind it of like how to trick the algorithm into like putting you in front of more listeners on Spotify or something else. The problem with that is that like there's no story being told and there's no one sort of cohesive work of art that you then can return to years and years later. Like if I think of my favorite bands, I would sometimes dust off like an EP or a split or something that they did, but more often than not, I'm going back to Clarity or Bleed American or whatever. And so when we're thinking about the album as like a whole story arc, we're like, if we ourselves find that we're getting a little bit bored or stale with the arrangement, or like the next song sounds a little bit too samey to the last song, we're like, let's be really intentional about the arrangement or like how it's recorded so that it still sounds cohesive and like an album and like us. But so what you're saying is high praise and validation that we're doing.
It worked.
Thank
I mean,
yeah. Thanks, man.
It sounds like the way that you've got it laid out is like, all right, we were all 15 years old once, right?
Right.
And that's when music hits the hardest, right? I mean, we didn't really have anything bad going. I mean, some people probably had some bad stuff going on in their lives, but man, my mom wouldn't let me go to the mall tonight. Ugh. And like you'll listen to a song or a whole album, and it's something like what you guys have just put together, and that sticks with you. Where you say like 10 years later, you can go back and listen to that and be like, God, that was so tough. Or yeah, I mean, you can do it. You can say it ironically now, but like that's the value in putting something together like you guys have done now.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
That's so
and
cool.
because we're not at all financially successful with music, we are totally free to do what we love, and like we put out songs that we love. There is no motivation to like fill space or pump out singles.
Yeah.
We love every song, and that also means that we write for every one song that is on an album. There's like dozens of like half starts and partially started things. We're like, I don't love it, so we're not going to do it.
I think that's Eric and I joke about that all the time because we talk about like profit margins and we're like, well, what is that? Like,
What's
is
a
bleeding
profit?
red? But I think it does lend itself to we can do whatever the fuck we want in terms of like this makes us this
we could say whatever we heckin' want.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
We start pressing.
I think it makes life a little more exciting when you get to just kind of like do things on your own time. I mean, that's how Eric and I have treated this whole podcast journey. Has just been like, this is what we're doing. We both work jobs. I mean, I feel like we all work jobs, but
same too.
but yeah, no, I definitely think that that's very powerful to be able to kind of write music how you want to write your music. Now, do you have an upcoming tour or shows to go along with the release of the album? I see you smiling, Ben.
Well, we have a release show that's going to be once we announce the record, we'll announce the show. And that's November 1st in Denver at Goosetown Tavern, which is this really cool little dive bar that we are stoked to play with a band from our scene in Colorado Springs called Viewfinder. And then we're playing with a really sick emo band from Nashville called Campson. Campson? I don't know. And so it's one of those I've read it and never said it actually. So, but the thing is like, and I don't want to be a downer about some of these things, but it is getting more and more expensive and more logistically complicated to think about booking a small tour, especially if what the stuff that we've done is, hey, let's do 10 dates around we're in the Mountain West. So let's do like California, Pacific Northwest, the Mountain West and get back. Right. And doing that little loop is beautiful, and we've developed some really good friends in those cities, and some really good bands that we like playing with. But you are lucky if you break even. And with all of us, like all of us are wife guys, and half of us have kids, all of us have day jobs, and it just becomes more and more complicated to think about doing like a full tour when you're in your 30s, right? And so we have been lucky enough in the past, though, to do these little weekenders with some bigger bands that have liked us. So we did 3 shows with May, and that's where we met, Dave Elkins, where he had a mutual friend that he literally, our mutual friend sent him the record, and Dave was like, people send me music all the time. I'm not gonna listen to it just because you're my friend. If I like it, I'll follow up with you. Please don't ask me about this ever again. Basically. And respect, like if I was Dave Elkins, I would do the same thing. But he liked the record and followed up with us, and we played 3 shows with May, and it was those Everglow and Destination Beautiful anniversary shows that they did last year. And so that was a ridiculous experience. We also got to play 3 dates with Switchfoot because like I literally tweeted at them one day and was like, hey, you should check out my band, John Foreman from Switchfoot. And he did. His brother Tim checked it out, and then like months later they sent us an email, and then months later we get to announce. But we made more money doing those 3 Switchfoot shows than we've ever done in any other context, doing whatever. And so, that's not a sustainable business model for a small band to just like, can we
just pester bigger bands until
I mean,
look, what is it? The squeaky wheel?
That's right.
Yeah, right.
We believe in asking and shooting our shot, and we send tons of emails, and we really love, we think that because the music is good, we actually are doing someone a favor when we send them the record. You know what I mean? We're like, hey, we're going to bless you with this really good, with this really good album. And if you like it, let us open for you or ask us, that's how we reached out to you guys about the podcast. Right. And so we believe in asking, but it's kind of a little bit of a bummer personally for me that we don't have a tour put together, because the timing didn't work out with some of our buds that are in bigger bands than us. And also, it's just, if we were the headliner and 15 to 35 kids are showing up to a VFW space, in Boise, Idaho, it's like, that's great, but we also drove 8 hours to get here. You know what I mean? And so like, we love DIY shows, but it's getting harder and harder to pull those sort of things off financially and logistically. So all that to say, we would love to have some of these crazy weekenders with bigger bands, or do some just weekenders ourselves and just kind of get there. But it's tough financially to be a small band where you're trying none of us are independently wealthy, and we're not like floating this thing just as a passion project. We want it to be a self-sustaining machine. And so we do have to think practically about, like, we can't lose our shirts, on this.
You're not going to leave your wives and children for
the Randy Marsh
5 month
No.
for a 5-month tour on one little van.
That costs $20,000. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
fun.
I've just like every musician we've talked to, like, the cost of touring just sounds ridiculous, and it's always like, hey, if we don't sell,
is there a movie that does that? I think there might be legs on that movie right there.
What about
just a bunch of 30-somethings leaving their family?
just
like a
tour?
doc?
Yeah.
That would go hard. Yeah.
Just
I've heard like, and it's always just it's always like, well, if we don't sell merch, then we just don't
eat.
We can't afford to eat and get to the next place. So well, that's a bummer. I was hoping you guys would make it over to the East Coast.
Someday.
Yeah, right. Well, you know,
You
we're
bug Dave Elkins about
he
asking us to get-
mentioned doing what, a
Hey, you know
20
who should open for you guys?
he mentioned
Yeah.
doing a 20th tour possibly for the Everglow.
yeah.
So you know what? We've only talked to him that one time, but we got you.
You're best friends. Yeah.
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, we'll let him know.
That hour and a
Yeah.
half. Yeah, I'll shoot him a text. No, but I think that when you do release it, it's going to really resonate with a lot of people. I think people are going
Thank
to
you.
really enjoy it, and we will definitely blast it out too. I mean, we're still growing as well, but it's something that, you know, I do think people will enjoy. Even if you're not like into that type of music, I think that, you know, it is just good stuff, man.
Thanks.
So the last question that I always like to ask, and I feel like it's the most difficult, and I don't want to call it the daddies why, because that seems, you know, like pseudo-sexual, but what would you say the why is that keeps you motivated and creating music after, you know, all of these years?
Well, I think it's partially survival because this is the main way that I process the difficult realities of my own life. And so I would write songs even if no one ever listens to them. And that is just, it's to be able to put something on paper or on your voice memo on your phone or whatever, and just look at it and kind of, I don't often slow down enough to sort of check in with myself of like, hey bud, how are you doing this week? Right. And so a song is an opportunity to sort of look at your current state and to say like, is this good or is this bad? Does it need improvement? Right. And so part of it for me is functional, but then part of it is also like there is something inherent to like think about the way that every kid you know is a creator. Like they're drawing constantly, they're constantly singing songs, they're messing with Legos. There's something about humans that when we get to our core sort of humanness, like trying to make something beautiful or something artistic or express ourselves in some sort of personal way through art is just like that's like breathing or talking to us, but then sort of culture sort of like beats that out of us by saying get serious and get a real job or whatever. And so I personally think that other than just like the personal, that like I just need to write songs for selfishly for myself, the other main sort of why is that the best friends that I've ever made have been friendships made over music, whether that's playing or just being into the same band. Like that's how Daniel and I got to, to be friends, was playing acoustic covers of Destination Beautiful songs and Jimmy Eat World songs. And now it's like we've been in the groomsmen in each other's wedding. He introduced me to the woman who's like now my wife. Like he helped me get my first professional job when I was like moved to Denver. I slept on his couch, and like that friendship would not exist without music. And
All the
so,
good things in Ben's life are because of Daniel.
yeah, that's right. Shout out Daniel. Yeah.
Daniel's the real one.
Yeah. But like, I think we've all, if we're reflective enough, we can all acknowledge that like some of the best, what do you do when things are good or when things are bad? You put on music.
Mhm.
And what do you do when you're a little bit confused and you don't quite have the words to like articulate what's going on with you? You put on transatlanticism or whatever,
Mhm.
And so to me, I think if we can be a part of that work and encourage others that like, hey, don't just be into art and music as a consumer. There's something really, really deeply human about just like you be a part of making something too. And if it sucks, that's great. Like that's actually, kids are not self-conscious enough that they're not like, oh, I was a little flat there, or like that horse doesn't really look like a horse, it looks like a weird chicken or whatever. And so they're just like, I made this horse, and it's like there's a purity of spirit to it that I find really compelling. And I find that as I get older, I'm in more and more in danger of losing that purity of spirit. And so part of being in a band in my 30s is like can I get that back? I don't know if you guys would add anything to that.
Go ahead, Nick.
Word.
That's hard to follow up, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add like there's almost a little. It's almost like a. I don't want to say compulsion. Like that's too strong of a word, but it's like you can't. Like Ben said, it's a core human thing. Like you want to make stuff, and then if you are lucky enough, or you put in the work to find people in your community, in your life that you actually get to do that with and make stuff with, whatever it is, visual art, drama, music. If you can find or create community around that, it's like one of the best things that you get to do. And then again, like Ben said, as a dude in your 30s, like there might not be a lot of things that you get to love to do anymore. And like life kind of beats a lot of that out of you. But find some friends you can be creative with and make stuff with them, and you're gonna have a great time.
Yeah, I think one thing that comes to mind is we got on this like YouTube mixtape, and this one guy commented like he shouted out our song and was like, "What kind of does anybody know like what kind of guitar they use? Like, I think I want to learn guitar." And it was like because of that song. Um, and that I don't know, that was one of the first things. That was like the acoustic EP that we put out where we were like, "Holy cow!" Like a stranger wants to learn guitar because of this song, and we got to tell him that a Telecaster will make the twinkly sounds. So I don't know. That was just that kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I don't know, or like somebody writing a poem, not even like about or like directly inspired by one of our songs, but like because they felt like they wanted to make something after they listen to our record or whatever. That's like some of the coolest stuff to me.
There's a lot of reasons why like we're as a culture confused about like why we should keep going, like why we should keep living. Like there's nobody can really come up with a really good answer for like what is the good life and what are it, some people answer that with like money, or like some people answer that with family, or your reputation at work, or like whatever. And it's just like a lot of these sort of answers that we give for like what's the point of being alive are kind of hollow at the bottom of them, or at least they get you to a point of nothingness at the bottom that is an invitation into something deeper, and an invitation into like we're actually here for each other, right? Is kind of like at the core desire for being good at work or having a family or having money is because we actually want to be connected with each other, right? And so to me, like Daniel and Nick are both saying, it's like music and art is the quickest way that I've found to like let's cut through the bullshit of small talk. Like what's actually going on with you? Music usually is the most efficient way to get there. Like it cuts through the BS like pretty quick. And so that's been of great help to me in figuring out my own life. And it's been really cool to like, and this has only happened a couple times, but like there's a couple who just people that we just know from online that have literally said like, I was in a bad place and I think that this record saved my life. And it's just like I don't have to do anything else to be successful in life anymore. You know what I mean? Like I could just put out music and never make a dime off it from just the high of like that's beautiful and gorgeous, and if that's true, that's wild, right? Because that definitely, those Death Cab records and those Jimmy Eat World records did that for me, right?
This can be off the record or whatever, but I would like to hear y'all's answer on that as well.
The why?
Yeah, the why.
Give us your daddy why.
The daddy why?
So do you want to go or do you want me to go?
I'll say what I think.
Okay, you say yours and I'll.
Similarly to Ben, you and Daniel, we just we worked together, and we just kind of hit it off, and we were tight, and we just have the most. We would always just like while we're at work, bonkers off the wall conversations, inappropriate. It's hilarious. We'll make people laugh, and then I mean probably dozens of times, on dozens of people, they would say, "Oh, you guys should do something with this." Then people started to say podcasts, so we were
Nice.
just like,
Well, and so the name actually, and we kind of talked about this, but I don't think we've ever like truly hashed out. So our name at my wedding, my mom probably isn't going to ever listen to this episode.
she,
So my mom, so
I'll tell this. This is one of my favorite.
okay,
stories.
so but before we get to that, so Eric and I worked together for about 3 months, and we bonded, Ben, kind of like you and Daniel, like over music. And we would go. We have I don't know if you've ever been out over to the East Coast, but we have Wawa over here, and so we would go to Wawa for lunch all the time and just like listen to Death Cab or I think The Devil Wears Prada or whomever.
Oh, yeah.
And
It was the Devil Wears Prada, yeah.
and I think I said, "Hey, my best man or my groomsman dropped out. Could you be?" It was like a real "I love you, man." Mo. I was like, "Could you be in the wedding?" It was a destination wedding in Florida, and he was already coming. And I believe your exact words were, "Meh."
I was like, I said, I don't think I want to do that.
And then so his at the time fiance convinced him to be in the wedding. And then Eric, I'll let you.
So then, Florida wedding, right? In these hot tuxes. So after party, or not the after party, the reception. His mom. I mean, I'm like in another world because I'm hot and sweaty and drunk. His mom comes over and she's macking on me, and I thought it was going to happen, but her boyfriend. I don't know if they're not.
I don't think they were married yet.
He comes over and he rips her away, but I then forever had that joke that I could have been his daddy.
Oh my word!
And then we made the joke like, "Hey, if I married his mom, we would be dad brothers." And we were going to be Dad Brothers, the podcast, but it was already taken.
Yeah.
So that's where Daddies,
way.
the podcast, came from. And so, like, but to answer like our why, it's always
So much
to
wilder
been
than I expected.
well, because people always, when we reach out to people, they think like we're some like it's like some sexual thing, or like you have to be a father, and that's not it. Like our thing is, when we started this, was to, number one, it was really just always, it was originally just Eric and I, and that was kind of like how we had it planned. But then we started bringing guests in, and our kind of why was, you listen to Joe Rogan and he has on billionaires and billionaires and trillionaires and whomever, but like we were like, well, why don't we talk to people that are relatable to the modern day everybody, right? So we talk to musicians, but we also talk to individuals who, like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Bed Light for Blue Eyes. They were based out of Jersey. Daniel Rinaldi, he was their singer, now does therapy through puppetry.
Oh, nice.
And so like, and it's catered to youth who, I might be afraid to go to school or whatever. And so like, we were like, well, these are things that are actually, I don't want to say like Joe Rogan and his guests don't matter, but like stuff like that really, I feel like can have an impact. And those things are like available to people. Like we talked to, so we went down a puppetry road where we were talking to
a couple puppeteers, a couple
puppeteers,
different soap makers. Actually, soap makers still musicians, but then
musicians
it's a
now
close second with
soap makers.
For
so
some
like
weird reason.
So like if
Nice.
you've ever heard of the Black Stuff, they're a soap company based out of Ireland, and Valhalla, they're based out of Arizona, and Hoffman, like we've had them on, and
Oh, nice.
and we've just like it's been nice to us, like nice for us to get to just meet individuals who, like, we can just actually have a real conversation with, and they're relevant to, I feel like, our listeners. We started dabbling with like photographers.
I hate the term content creator, but like, I mean, I guess we kind of are, and I enjoy being able to say, if somebody says, "Well, how do you know that?" Because I talked to the person that made that.
Yeah.
Is a really cool thing to be able to say.
And I feel like for us, like it's been cool to get to, one, talk to, like, as a musician, getting to talk to other musicians, but then also getting to talk to Cartoon Connect. He is an animator, but also does puppetry stuff. But we're also talking to somebody this week who used to be in the Amish culture and she ran away from it.
Whoa.
And so like it's just really fascinating. We've talked to chefs. So like we aren't, and it's funny, like my mom's always like, well, I don't know like any daddies to have on your show. I'm like, I mean we have people who are fathers, but like that's not what
Tell her next
show
time
is.
she says that she knows one.
Listen to this episode, Mom. But I would say that's our why, just kind of talking to individuals that are kind of relevant to the modern day,
Yeah.
everybody. And I don't know if we've ever actually like really talked about that. So thanks for that one, Nick, because we've never
Nice.
really, I don't think we've put that out there.
That's
So new album, one more time, How We Dig in the Earth is
Yes.
coming out November 1st.
Yes.
And so how can individuals listen to that album?
So it'll be everywhere that you can listen to music. The best way that you can support small and independent artists is to go to a website called bandcamp.com and actually push purchase. And you can purchase just the MP3s, and then you can go into your iTunes library, add it in, and then it just shows up in your phone. It's old school.
or you can buy
It's
a
great.
record or a CD.
Or-
and
yeah,
also get
yeah,
those
so-
files.
Yeah, that's right. So
Yeah.
we're putting the record out, and we self-finance this ourselves. We're putting it out on CD, compact disc, and vinyl record, which seem to be the two archaic technologies that have some sort of staying power. Many of us still listen to CDs in our cars, and so you can do that. And some of us have turntables at home, and you can do that too. But if actually buying the thing is not either accessible to you or whatever, you can just go on whatever streaming service you use. You can pirate the MP3s with our full permission. Who gives one care?
Yeah,
about it?
we'll send it. We'll send it to you. We'll leak.
So yeah, because I'm definitely interested in getting a vinyl. Are you doing a limited number of printed vinyls that
We
are
yeah.
they available yet for pre-order?
Depending on when this goes live, they might be
Okay.
available. For
Oh, is that it?
Yeah. That's
Okay.
our test. That's our test press that we got back.
Oh, nice. Okay.
We're doing limited run of 300 of vinyl, so they should sell out within before the end of the year or whatever. And we'll repress them if people care, but like otherwise the 300 exist, and then that's all you get.
So here's what I'll do. I'll buy one and I'll take one of those tiles down from back there and I'll put it
I
right
love
in the
that.
background. So anyone
Sick.
watching,
That's crazy.
let's
go.
We'll see. So I will make sure to get one.
Yeah, thank you.
Whenever they're available. But thank you, Ben, Nick, Daniel, A Place for Owls for joining us. We wish you the best of luck, man. Nothing but success with the album, and hopefully you get that big tour, and it happens.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for
It's
coming.
great
on.
talking.
Thank
Yeah.
This was super fun. Thanks, guys. Yeah,
Thanks,
and
y'all.
best of luck to y'all too.
Thank you, appreciate it.